Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final part of Virginia SBDC's Corona Kickstart webinar series. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm the facilitators for today's webinar. Today's webinar, Leadership and Uncertainty, is one of our educational offerings of the Virginia Small Business Development Center. The Virginia SBDC is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one consulting services are available at no charge. For more information or to schedule an appointment, reach out to your local office, and if you're not sure where that is, you can find a listing on virginiasbdc.org. I'd like to introduce you to our speaker for today's session, Sharon Wright, owner and president, and Dave Haynes, Swider, chief strategist of Loud and Clear Marketing. So a little bit about our speakers. Since her teen years, Sharon has been laser focused on her pursuit of a career in public relations. Much like the journalist she's partnered with over her career, Sharon is thrilled to chase the next great story, and she knows in her heart needs to be told. Stories that captivate readers. While working at two of the largest PR firms in the world, she guided IBM as it introduced computers into the classroom, British Petroleum when oil was spilling across the Hawaiian island chain, Tony Robbins when his program attendees were having unplanned run-ins with the law, and Southwestern Bell as it rebranded to Verizon. She's guided a prominent energy company through a hostile takeover. She's served more than 30 million Americans by leading the events group at AARP, and she's traveled the world to open and brand 15 Hyatt International hotels outside of the US. She founded what is now Loud and Clear Marketing in 2012, having spent most of the last 20 years helping Loudoun businesses tell their story. A member of the board of Loudoun's Chamber of Commerce and co-founder of Saving Loudoun's Littles, one car seat at a time, she's committed to being a force of positive change in the Loudoun community. Deb has always been a collector of stories, whether reading, writing, or listening to them. Turning the love of storytelling into a career, Deb has helped tell the stories of companies across the United States, trade associations in the DC metro area, nonprofit organizations who are changing the world, and politicians who often hang around longer than they should. Deb has liked the part of the Valley of the Giants, has hiked the Valley of the Giants to tell the story of sustainable forestry. She's run an award-winning campaign promoting the passage of Medicare Part D. She's written and produced advertisements that save the secondary housing market as we know it. And she's told Congress more than once what they should do with their votes through award-winning campaigns. A recovering lawyer, she also knows how to run the operations of a business. She's good at giving orders, making plans, and executing them. She also has a master's degree in foreign policy. If you ever want to geek out with her, she's always ready, always looking to tell a story, for a story to tell. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording today's presentation, and it'll be posted along with it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC .org website. We do have handouts that we'll be emailing to you after the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those into the question and answer window, and these ladies will do their best to answer them at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, here are Deb and Sharon.
Hi, I'm Deb Haynes Swider, and I am happy to welcome you to the last of the series, Leading in Uncertainty. We've been going through a series that have tried to help you get your business kickstarted in the wake of this coronavirus that's really set a lot of us off our feet. What we're going to discuss today is we're going to go over 5 tips that are going to help you lead through uncertainty and sustain your business through this coronavirus disruption. As I said, this is one of 4. We had the first series Sharon and I did last week on branding and messaging. Mary did a session on audience building a little bit later last week. And then this week, Kelly did a session on reaching your audience. And then this is the final session called Leadership in Crisis.
So what is leadership in crisis? A little side note, Deb will tell you that I thrive on crisis. I love it. My PR side, I've been exposed to a good bit of crisis work over the years. Deb, on the other hand, as the reformed lawyer that they mentioned, doesn't necessarily love it, but either way, we've both been we've been around a good degree of crisis work in our time, and the coronavirus is no different. So leading involves guiding people to the best possible eventual outcome over this arc of time. Your focus needs to be on what is likely to come next and readying to meet it. That means seeing beyond the immediate to anticipate the next 3, 4, or 5 obstacles.
The first tip that we have for you is to get your house in order. It's really a fundamental thing for you to do in your business. The reason we know that this is important is because 89% of people surveyed say that brands must protect the well-being and financial security of their employees, according to the Untitled Trust Barometer. And then another study shows us that 78% of those surveyed want companies to priority employee health and well-being and the financial security of their employees and suppliers, even if it means suffering financial losses until the pandemic ends. These are pretty big numbers. These are pretty big indicators that what's important to your customers, what's important to customers out there is that you take care of your people and you take care of your suppliers above all else. That's what they want to see you doing. So to that end, we want to talk about a couple different things. First of all, we want to talk to you about how do you talk to your employees? What do you do? What do you tell them? Your employees can be either one of two. They could be one of two things. They can be your ambassadors. They can be people who go out and talk up your business and are very excited about working with you and want to fulfill your purpose, or they can unintentionally tarnish your reputation or your image with misinformation. They can strengthen or they can cripple your business. And by talking regularly to your employees, you can better take control of your reputation and the conversation outside of your walls. So how do you do that? Couple possibilities. One, demystify the situation for your employees. In times of uncertainty, your employees are going to want to know that you care about them and that you hear their concerns. They want to be led. They want to know where they're going. They want to know where you're going. And they want to know how they're going to be part of that journey. As the Harvard Business Review says, they need to trust that you're going to lead them. So it's important that they know exactly where you're going as a company and where you want them to be as part of that, where you want them to be as part of that journey. The 2020 Edelman Trust Barometer reports that people trust most their employer over businesses in general, or governments, or the media. So what that tells us is that you are the most credible source of information for your employees when it comes to any information related to the economy or your business. So use that power that you have. Remember that they're going to listen to you first. So harness that power that you have. You should make your employees part of solutions by letting them know what is at stake for your business. Once they understand what's at stake, they're more likely to buy into where you want to lead them. You'll be more successful if every employee understands how their performance affects the business as a whole and how their performance affects your customers and the performance of the fiscal performance of where you're going. Another thing that you need to do is put your employees' minds at ease. You need to remind your employees of the vision, your vision statement, your mission statement, your purpose, whatever your values, whatever statements that you have, the things that you've used as your hallmarks of your business or the foundation of your business. Even in uncertainty, those things are not going to change. Those are going to remain your guiding stars as you work together through the crisis. They're going to be the foundation that is going to lead you forward. You need to clearly communicate what matters most to your business now that the crisis has changed the way that we do business. What are your new priorities? Let them know so that they can help you work toward that goal. Consider resetting their performance goals individually. Go through each employee and say, listen, things have changed and here's where we're going and here's how you can be a part of that. Because of the fact that everything has changed, you really need to reset with everyone. You need to give them clear direction and help them focus to help ensure your survival. You need to state and restate those business objectives clearly so that their team stays on track. There's so much information coming at us right now that to state and restate is not a bad thing. People forget there's so many things. If you're trying to teach your kids, if you're trying to homeschool your kids and also do your work, as a lot of office employees are doing right now, hearing the message over and over again of here's where we're going and here are our objectives is not a bad thing. There's so many distractions. Find ways to show that you'll take care of your team and that you understand that life in a crisis, it brings distractions. And then what's really important is you need to tell your employees where they're succeeding. Highlight the positives, the positive outcomes you're having as a company or acts of kindness that your employees have done. Telling those good stories is just priceless. Everyone loves a hero, and painting your employees' work as heroic or normal or making what you do a cause serves to unify teams toward a purpose. So celebrate the good you're doing as a team. The fact that your employees are even working right now in the midst of all this chaos is pretty heroic in itself. So celebrate that. You should also provide hope for the future. You need to let your employees help formulate those customer solutions. Let them be part of what you're doing and part of the solution. A lot of times leaders are just removed from what's happening on the front lines. So what you need to do is you need to kind of get into those front lines and get more information so that you can empower those employees so that they can be more likely to increase your customer satisfaction. And then also it makes your employees more productive and want to be part of this team and more valuable to you in the long term. According to McKinsey, 60% of employees say they believe that their ideas for improving customer experience often goes unheard. You need to think about that statistic. If 60% of your people are dissatisfied with the way that you are listening to them, that could really hurt your performance. So if you need to think about whether or not your employees feel this way and maybe make a change. The crisis will also give you insight into the employees that do well, who do well in a crisis and how they lead. When you need to think about how your leaders have performed and get training for those who have struggled or need help. You need to invest in your people to help better position them for success. And for those who've performed well, you might consider giving them more responsibility or rewarding their efforts. Asking them to be part of your crisis response team were warranted. I was listening recently to a CEO on CNBC who talked about one of his biggest regrets after the 2008 recession. And his regret was that he had cut the salaries of the people that he'd asked to do more. And in the end, it cost a lot of just malcontent among his employees, because here they were working extra hours and going the extra mile, and they were working with a cut salary. And he said in hindsight, what he wished he had done was to give people spot bonuses, really narrow into the people who are performing well and give them bonuses and really continue to encourage them to be part of that team and work toward that good purpose. So it's a lesson that we've learned from the last recession. It's something we need to take into the future as we face this uncertainty that we have in front of us. You probably are asking, how often do we need to do this? A lot of people are saying daily. Edelman's Trust Barometer, again, is telling us that 63% of those surveys would like their employees to share information at least daily. So block out time to connect with your team and find ways to do that daily check-in. Ask in terms of tone, you really need to think about asking how people are doing. Be empathetic at first, because really people are in crisis and that personal touch will help you quite a bit. But then after that, let's talk about the insights and the morale of the company and where you want to go. Again, some companies even do a Friday afternoon check-in. One company I've heard of, he told his employees exactly how much money they had left and how many days that they can continue to run the business and how much they had to make individually in order to keep the business going another day. So that really, he says that really helped his employees know where they stood and know how they needed to come together as a company, and it's really worked for them. Remember that you just don't need full information to speak. In fact, if you wait for full information, which you will never have, it could make you miss opportunities, and it could hurt you. You have to really trust your instincts, because crisis demands quick action and quick decision-making, which can be very uncomfortable for some people, including me, the introvert. Not as hard for Sharon, who's a little bit more extroverted. Right now, though, speed is critical to keeping your business moving. And, the best leaders recognize where they need help. So if you need help, get a consultant in there and get them to help you figure out how to fix things. You're going to be able to see where the fissures are in your organization as things are going forward. So start to track those and try to figure out where you can shore up those weaknesses. And then finally, I'm going to talk about channels of communication. Well, several companies that have really been doing things well have created hubs of information HubSpots, either through physical places or physically or virtually. So either through email communication and intranet, sometimes a Slack channel, sometimes social media channels, whatever works best for your company, big or small. Try to figure out a way to regularly communicate with those employees and give them the pertinent information that they need. and encourage dialogue among your employees. You can't fix problems without knowing they exist. So by allowing for open communication and creating secure and easy to use portals for employees to communicate with leadership, you're gaining critical insights into your business. That's going to be important for you to keep going. Some companies are setting up Slack channels to do this, dedicated to employee communication. Others are doing internal polling to test employee morale. These are kind of bigger companies that do the testing, internal testing. And some of them have been adding open-ended questions to allow employees to voice their concerns, and they're listening because they realize that that's a critical thing to keeping you moving forward together. Remember to use inclusive and collaborative language. We, not I, all of us, together. All of those words are important to make sure that you keep a unified team. So questions that you should ask yourself: are you communicating with your employees? Microsoft has set up, of course, Microsoft Teams, a Teams channel that holds information on the coronavirus response from Microsoft. So of course they're using their own technology to help their employees, but it's a great way for them to gather that information and put them in one place that's easily accessible. Do your employees have a clear direction? Do they know where you're going as a company? Is this where a vision or purpose statement can come into play? And you can use those team meetings to help you make those short-term objectives clear. How can I put my employees at ease? If there's information or data that you can give them that can make them feel better, for example, we have enough money for us to go 5 more days. That might be helpful to them, and so that they don't, if you're not going to close tomorrow. Can you make them part of the solution? For example, Expedia's employees are blogging about working from home, including there's one senior executive who's homeschooling 5 kids. So he's sharing his experience with his other coworkers to try to help them feel like they can get some solutions together. They can work on how to figure out how to homeschool, balance that homeschool working environment and actually being productive for your team. And also ask yourself whether or not your employees have the information they need. That's something that's really critical and critical to keeping your employees free of anxiety and really feeling like they're part of a team.
Thank you, Deb. So Deb has covered the internal employee relations piece of this. I'm going to cover the external and the communicating with your customers. Edelman has been putting out some amazing research just in the midst of this crisis even. They're reporting 64% of consumers believe brands can be a powerful force to change and say they vote with their wallets. And more interestingly, because I do know that many of the participants on this webinar today are small businesses, they report that family-owned businesses are the most trusted. So this is great news for our small businesses who are watching today. Kantar's coronavirus research is showing that 75% of consumers stated brands should also be informing the public about their specific efforts to combat the spread. So what to say to your customers: focus on what is important to them. It is critical to know your audience so you know what's important to them. In our region in Northern Virginia, tomorrow is a really big day. It's the day when a lot of our businesses who have been previously closed are allowed to open to the public for, in the case of restaurants and breweries, wineries, they can open to the outside. So I'm going to share with you an announcement that was made just an hour to an hour and a half ago by a large, well-known winery in our area, Bro Vineyards. Jen Bro, the owner, put out a message that I wanted to highlight. She put out a blog that was so thorough and so deep. One particular topic was masks, the hot topic. We know that mask wearing can be a high conflict and sensitive topic. However, they must be worn inside, mandate. And we ask that you kindly wear them when you arrive at the check-in area and when you are walking the grounds, if you will be less than 6 feet away from others. Please be especially mindful of social distancing. So they're tackling every important piece that I, as a consumer, and I do frequent the wineries from time to time, I want to know that if I choose to go to a winery and spend part of my weekend, that others around me will have some decorum in place. Tell customers how you're helping them helping make their life safer or better, how you're taking care of your employees to keep them safe, or how you're contributing to the solution. The Target Target sent out a note from their CEO to customers describing the enhanced cleaning procedures and additional staffing for order pickup and drive-up services. You can bet that those big brands came out quickly and with well-crafted messages, so that we all knew that even in this pandemic that we could visit our local Target or our local Walmart with knowing that we would be safe. Remember, your tone should be one of empathy and hope for the future rather than selling. And we talked a lot about this last week. You should consider every ad or promotion you have in play based on the state of mind of your consumers. Ads you were running in March most likely should not be running now. If you are still moving forward with a proactive advertising campaign, make sure your messaging is in line with that, and celebrate the good. Just as customers want to hear messages of hope, they want to hear the good stories you have to tell. And again, I love stories. I mentioned that in my bio. So I'm going to share with you one other story. We have a local pub owner in our area, Kevin Bednarz, who owns both the Ashburn and Percival pubs. He has been a shining example of everything to do right, both from an internal perspective, but as I'm speaking about external, he came out with his phone and his handheld videos, which again, it doesn't have to be fancy right now. It just has to be real, and it has to be authentic. And Kevin came forward and said, I want to save my people. I want to make sure I'm not having to let folks go. And right away, he had the support for the curbside pickup. And then he started feeding the frontline healthcare workers. Well, guess what? Kevin started getting checks from businesses for large sums of money with the distinct purpose of both keeping his team employed and feeding the frontline workers. So Kevin has been weekly or a couple times a week throughout this entire pandemic, showing up at all of our hospitals, our senior living facilities, our anywhere the front line basically has been. And I just, hats off to Kevin. I think he's done a great job. Crisis environments demand agility. You must be prepared to change course quickly and make the best decision you can with the information you have at hand. How to say it. You have a difficult balance right now. That is a fact. You're dealing with great uncertainty. None of us have been through anything like this. Your decisions are complex, but this is not about getting sympathy for the difficult job we're all doing. Speak with humility and vulnerability, and in an authentic and genuine way. Ask yourself whether the information you're sharing can relieve anxiety and help your customers. We helped one of our clients do something so simple in the beginning of this by executing a photo shoot to show that his team was heading out with masks and gloves and booties and taking all the necessary precautions. And then keep it simple. Complex information isn't easy to process. It doesn't need to be long or complex. Short and sweet will be much appreciated. And then consider bulleted communications or an FAQ format. As far as how often, always keep your communication rolling as often as you can with as much information as people are juggling right now. Again, we're living in unprecedented times. Just because you said it once doesn't mean you shouldn't say it again. Take repetition for an audience to hear. It takes repetition for an audience to not only hear your message, but to absorb it and for it to resonate. Communicate through the channels your customers are using. And Kelly talked about channels on Tuesday. That could mean web pages, social media channels, or email communications. It all depends truly on which channels your customers are using. And then a couple questions to wrap up this section. What do my customers want to hear? Rent the Runway is a good example. They sent out an email marketing campaign outlining their cleaning processes. For any of you women out there who have taken advantage of their service, they're shipping dresses to you, and you want to know that there are cleaning efforts being made so that when you get that package, not that any of us are attending big events right now, however, to go to the grocery store, we might want to look our best. Again, it's still important. You really never know. Am I expressing hope? What is my tone? Am I keeping it simple? Walmart published something really simple for their team. It was called the 6-20-100 guidance. Stand 6 feet away to maintain safe physical distance. Take 20 seconds for a good hand washing, and consider a body temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit the signal to stay home from public activity. So what's the best channel to reach your customers? Again, I mentioned there was the third in our series covered channel planning and understanding the channels that your customers are digesting on a regular basis. So it's important to understand that. Moving on to the next section of reinforcing trust. A 2018 Salesforce survey showed that 95% of customers say are they more likely to be loyal to a company they trust. 55% of US respondents say they're turning to the brands they're absolutely sure they can trust. And 69% of US respondents say brands and companies putting profits over people will lose their trust forever. So guys, this is not the time to be promoting sales and promoting offers. You want to really, truly be living in this moment. Change your view, step back to see the larger picture. Observe, listen, and get input from multiple and diverse perspectives. Your perspective is likely to narrow. You'll be stronger if you look outside your own frame of reference. We talked about this as well. Maybe this was in even a different webinar completely, but listen to the social channels. You know that both your own company and maybe your peers have interaction on social messages. Read those and listen to what the perspective is. You will glean so much from what your customers and even the customers of your peers are feeling and thinking. You should also be taking a broad view of your challenges and opportunities. By doing so, you're more likely to connect with a broader audience. And then maintain customer trust. Trust is formed through businesses showing integrity, achieving stated goals, demonstrating your ability to motivate, showing innovation and collaboration. I'll give you another good example. We work with a senior living community with locations across the entire Eastern Seaboard, who was the proud recipient of face shields donated nationally by the Ford Motor Company, an unlikely B2B partnership created organically through this crisis. Creating partnerships is not too late. Think of ways for your business to partner with others in your community who share your values. And I would chance it to say that you know who they are. You're seeing them, you're hearing them, you might be seeing articles in the paper. Form those relationships. Again, we're still coming out of this crisis. And I'll talk about this a little bit later. We don't know what the fall will bring, right? So planning and preparation is key. People trust more than institutions. Make your communications personal from a leader who is worthy of trust. Emails and social media posts are great vehicles for communicating information, but we love video. And Deb and I ourselves are even stepping out of our comfort zone a little bit and doing a lot more video. My introverted partner is raising her red flag over there, but it's true. We can't stress enough that, picking up your phone and shooting a video, again, it's going to look authentic. It's going to look real. Find ways to demonstrate empathy. JetBlue, for instance, waived the change in cancellations fees when the quarantines were first announced and ended up being one of the first to do that. Remember that to maintain trust, you should always tell the truth. And by taking an optimistic tone, you can promote hope amongst your customer base. Trust your team. We talked a lot about trusting your team internally, but we can't stress that enough. Volatility can cause some leaders to seek more control. And I'm going to laugh at that a little bit as well, because this has been a challenge for all businesses, ours included. And it takes a true leader to be able to step back and know that they have the right team in place. And I know that we do. And so we have been careful to make sure that our team is still leading the charge with the clients. Assess the layers of approval needed for decisions. Adding constraints means your business will become slower and less responsive. Instead of creating more constraints, instead be clear in your instructions so that people know what's expected of them. Resist the urge to micromanage. No one loves a micromanager. As a leader, determine which decisions can only be made by you and delegate the rest. Decision trees can help provide clear roles and expectations. Overloading your plate as a leader will lead to failure. So set clear parameters and trust those you've put in leadership positions. Again, you may not know that people on your team will thrive in crisis until you're in the crisis. Deb and I talk a lot about the trenches. We have learned in all of this who's in the trenches, who's comfortable in the trenches, who's peering out over the top saying, what next, what next? And then we've seen too, and it's no fault of anybody, you know, who might need just a little bit more time to go inside and to take a deep breath. So all really important things to understand about your team. Questions to summarize this section: what assumptions are you making, and are you sure they're the right ones? Have I thought of alternate perspectives? Can I use video to connect to customers? And I'll tell you, this one was quite fun. Jim Purdue, right? We all know the name Purdue. He was one of the first to do a national thank you video on his personal cell phone. So he picked up his cell phone. Maybe he had a good counselor team like ours, but he picked up his phone and he got real. And again, I can't stress that enough. Am I being hopeful? Las Vegas has done an ad recently called Only You, hashtag Only You. When you're ready, we'll be ready and better than ever, because there is no bigger star in this town than you. And then the final question is, am I creating barriers or delegating for success?
That takes us to the fourth tip, which is do the right thing. According to Edelman's Trust Barometer, again, we've gone back to this because it's really great research. So we would suggest that you take a look at it as well if you're trying to figure out what to do and what to say. 33% of those surveyed convinced other people to stop using a brand they felt was not acting appropriately in response to the pandemic. So that means not only have they abandoned the brands themselves, but they've also actively tried to push others to abandon the brand as well. So if you think about that in terms of your business, if you had a third of your customers trying to convince another third of your customers that you had not responded properly in this pandemic, that could be really just deadly for your business. So let's figure out a way to avoid that. And we're going to go through a couple ways that you can do that. But also the barometer tells us that 90% believes brands must do everything they can to protect the well-being and financial security of their employees and their suppliers, even if it means suffering the big financial losses until the pandemic ends. So they're really expecting you to sacrifice as a business owner to make sure that you keep your people and your suppliers safe. Those are huge numbers, guys. It's just really, that's a very strong signal for us to take a look at. So let's think about this in terms of your employees. Focus on what, you need to, focus on what really matters and use your values and purpose to direct people as a leader through these chaotic times. Ultimately, you've got a team because you need them. You can't do this by yourself. You need to have them in order to accomplish your goals. So trust them, unite them as a team, remind them of why you're there, remind them of your purpose and your goals. Again, the same sorts of things that we talked about in the first section, how they contributed to the whole, how they're part of that whole, and how important it is that their contribution is to the greater whole. Recognize their individual contributions. I think I've...
That's okay. We've gotten a little...
That's okay. So for your customers, for your employees, if you're facing tough decisions, so this is really important. If you're facing tough decisions, you need to share some contextual information to help people understand the reasoning behind the changes that you're making, to help them understand why it is that you've had to make these tough decisions. I know there are a lot of businesses who are really facing that. It's really tough for them right now to make those decisions, because a lot of us have maintained, as small business owners, we have small teams and we know our teams sometimes really personally. We know our families, we've had our families together. So if you're having to make cuts right now, putting those cuts into context, that can really, really help. So that's important. For your customers, as we said last week, your brand is really unique. And so what works for one brand may not work for another brand. So think about how your role has changed and what role you now play in your customers' lives and how you can help your customers get through this crisis. And then where your social needs of your community interact with what you can do as a business, take the opportunity to contribute to your customers' lives. They'll remember that's part of relationship building. They're going to remember if you help them. So it's important that if you have the opportunity and you have the ability to do that, go ahead and do it. It's pretty critical to maintaining your reputation. So listen to your customers' needs, continue to build that trust. Again, it's not about you. It's about what you can do to make your customers' lives better right now. Your compassion will strengthen your reputation and it will help your brand weather the storm. Conversely, brands that aren't acting with compassion are taking reputation hits right now. Another important thing is to be reliable. In order to maintain the trust you need to survive, reliability is critical. So what are the questions that you can ask? Are there ways I can better support my team in crisis? One example that is a great example of someone supporting their team in crisis is that Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks NBA team, is ensuring hourly workers and staff are paid regardless of cancellation of the season. So he's paying them even if they work or not, he's going to pay them. He's going to take care of them. That's going to help him in his reputation in the long term. Many companies are also increasing paid time off for employees to help cover those who get sick or have to take care of other loved ones. In the end, they're going to be looking at those companies as good corporate citizens. They take care of their people, and therefore they must be good people. They must be good companies to work for. Am I showing my employees I value them? So again, that idea that we had before, that you would give them spot bonuses or help them. And then a good example of this nationally is that Yum Brands, the Yum Brands CEO, which is the KFC and Taco Bell's of the world, he gave up the rest of his salary for 2020 to fund $1,000 bonuses to restaurant general managers and to help fund employee medical relief, which is giving hardship grants to employees. He's giving up his own salary to make sure that his people are taken care of. That's a significant step. How can I be part of the solution? So one great example locally, even distilleries across the country and really particularly locally are turning to production of hand sanitizer. So they're becoming part of the solution by changing what they usually do, business as usual, to actually actively offering solutions to their customers. And then lastly, are there better ways that I can meet my customer needs? Always keep in the front of your focus what it is that you need to do to meet that customer need, because ultimately that's what makes you relevant to them.
Great. So the final tip in our 5 tips is to be proactive. Global Web Index is reporting that 65% of American consumers are looking to business to lead the response to coronavirus. Salesforce reports that 90% of consumers say companies have a responsibility to improve the state of the world, and 93% expect companies to look beyond profit to positively impact society. Enable your teams, something that we've been talking about in this session. Businesses that proactively seek to empower their teams in crisis tend to be more resilient during and after the crisis. Define priorities, have weekly team meetings, refine your objectives. So all really important things to do right now. Name your decision makers. We talked about that. Define their roles, right? Again, what are the most important things that you need to do versus what your team can do? Empower all levels of the organization with defined parameters. Embrace action and don't punish mistakes. Again, we're living in such an unprecedented world. There are going to be missteps, but it's okay. Again, you can correct that by being open, honest, and communicating clearly. As we said before, strengthen connections from different levels of your business so that you have an accurate picture from which you can triage. Do assessments often, integrate technology solutions, look to research where you can. In fact, our firm was finding just recently that our Wi-Fi was affecting a few members of our team. So my home in particular, maybe I just have too many too many devices going. So we brought in a company called Partnered, and we were one of their first companies where they pivoted as well. We were their partnered concierge program, and we did a virtual session with them to test our Wi-Fi and figure out what was causing the problem, and an amazing way to look at technology for solutions. And then look to the research. We talked in our first session about following the big brands. Look to see what the big brands are doing and follow suit. You'll know when it's time to start selling. Again, I don't want to go into the selling conversation today, but you'll know when it's time based on taking the leads from some of the larger brands. Decide with speed over precision. You're never going to have the perfect information, like Deb said. As a leader, you need to develop systems and processes to help you quickly gather and process information. You're probably overloaded, just like the rest of us are, and your priorities are probably clashing. Dealing with high anxiety, but not making decisions will cripple your business. This next line is something that I found to be so important. This is not a time for consensus. This is a time for true leadership. And I can't stress that enough in the years that I've been in the marketing world. This is true leadership. It's time for you to step up and be the leader that your team, that your customers, and even your stakeholders expect you to be. You'll likely be making trade-offs, so try to look at decisions from different angles. Adapt boldly. Surviving crisis involves resilience and adaptation. Evaluate the data you have and refine as needed. Prioritize what you do to get to your new future. Again, the future is not necessarily sure, right? We know that a lot has changed for our business. A lot will change, and it's really, really important to be sure that you're planning to the best of your abilities. Create new processes, and when you have a moment to breathe, start planning for the next crisis. This could include thinking ahead to the fall when experts are predicting that we may just have a resurgence of this. So we'll know what a shutdown looks like if God forbid this happens to our country again or to our world. So all important things to be thinking of. I mean, maybe this is like the dress rehearsal, right? That God forbid we have to go through this again. But look at what you've learned in the last 3 months. Some questions to round out this section. I want to be mindful of time and be sure we have some time for questions. Are there decisions that can be pushed downward? In fact, even on our own team, we've empowered a member of our team to take on a much greater role in the company so that she can help us be able to do what we need to do. So for us, it's been doing a lot of webinars. It's been working more proactively with clients at this time, you know, as we all work to rewrite marketing plans for those that we serve. Is there a process or tool that can help me make decisions more efficiently? Maybe considering decision trees, as Deb talked about. What data do I need to make decisions, and how can I adapt to succeed? So to wrap up, one of the important notes from the very beginning from Tracy, I think the next slide, Deb, there is no cost coaching available by the SBDC, and I can't stress that enough. I have been a very proud coaching client of the SBDC since 2002. It was the very first year that I decided to step away from the corporate world and go it on my own, and I engaged them that far back. We at Loud and Clear Marketing are offering free virtual marketing assessments to any business who needs maybe just a fresh set of eyes looking at their business to make sure that you are doing everything you can do to survive this crisis. And if you need help with any other online resources, the Virginia SBDC has it all. Just a fantastic collection of material that they've been putting out both during this crisis and well before.
And as we talked about before, there are tools that we look at because often our clients are smaller and don't have the big research budgets that some of Sharon and my former bigger clients had to go out there and do that first person research for themselves. So what do we do in order to help us to decide about tone and decide about the direction that we should take in our marketing efforts? First of all, we look at our audiences. That's important. But then also we look to research that's out there and available to us. One of those pieces of research is called the Edelman Trust Barometer. If you Google that, you should be able to find that. The Global Web Index is also putting out some great reports right now. Coronavirus information is out there for free. And then Kantar is also providing some free research information reporting that marketing companies or individual businesses can use to help them figure out how they need to proceed in the future. Also, if you kind of take a look at the big brands and what they're doing, it will give you an idea of where the tone is, and because they always have their fingers on the pulse of the sentiment and of public consumer sentiment. So keep an eye on what they're doing and see how they're pivoting in their messaging and where they're going, and that can help you decide how you need to proceed with your own business as well.
And this last slide pretty much shows you how you can reach us if you would like to do so. We're available, and we'd love to talk to any businesses.
Thank you both for your presentation today. We have a couple of questions. Thanks for the great info. Question about when using surveys. Given this time of great uncertainty, shall we expect that there are a lot of consumers whose voices are not reflected in these surveys? Some people are fighting on the front lines.
I think, that's always true in surveys. You have to, it's a representative sample usually of the population. It's never 100%. So I think that, yeah, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, but the real point of doing it is to really try to get a finger on that pulse and try to see what the majority of people are. It's a sampling. So again, know your own audience, look at your own audience and look at your own what your own audience is saying. And as Sharon said earlier, one good way to do that is to look at social groups and try to hear what the chatter is saying, and talk one-on-one with your customers and hear what they're feeling and what they need and what they're thinking, to give you insights. Because really that one-on-one personal relationship and conversation is much more important than what a national survey says. Again, we use that as a guidepost to try to help us to determine what the general feeling is, but always we look to the individualized audiences of the businesses that we're helping.
So I hate to be on camera.
Me too.
That's the question. If I had an employee that could do well on camera, does it have to be me?
That's a great question, and in fact, it's not a uncommon question. We have clients, and we have had clients over the years that hate being on camera, and that's okay. What you need to do is look around on your team for who you might think would be great on camera, and arm them with the tools they need, and give them the encouragement. And your best spokesperson could be anyone on your team. So again, speak with authenticity and passion, and it really can be anybody.
Why does reputation matter?
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Reputation can make or break your business. If you think about some of the big brands and some of the reputation hits that they've taken and how much that has hurt their business and their market share, that should give you an indication of how it could affect your business in a smaller scale. You can take years and years to build a good reputation and to build a good feeling of goodwill in your community. But one bad review or one bad, rogue customer that goes around bad mouthing you think about that statistic that said a third of the people are actively trying to get other people to go after or to leave brands because of the response or the lack of response to this pandemic. Think about the impact that can make on your business. Just to have one person who's actively trying to get people to stop using your brand, that could be pretty detrimental to you and your business. You're always clawing for that market share. You're always trying to work. I mean, our job is really to help businesses grow and help get that market share, that brand awareness that they need to get that market share. So if you don't have a good reputation, it's just going to be harder for you to, it's going to take more money, and it's going to take more resources, and it's just going to be harder for you to grab that market share that you're looking for. So keeping a strong reputation, keeping a positive reputation is very important. And I can tell you that people spend millions of dollars trying to repair reputation when it goes bad. It's just not a place that you want to be. So do the work that you need to do to keep that reputation strong. Do the work to mitigate if you've got somebody who's had a bad review, because it's really a lot easier for you to nip it in the bud very quickly one-on-one than it is to try to face a tsunami of negative press or bad reviews.
Deb, this question's for you. How would you say your legal background sets you apart as a communications professional?
Well, I learned in law school how to persuade. If you think about lawyers and how they're trained to spot issues, they're trained to look at the rules and make arguments to persuade and lead people to conclusions. That's IRAC is our acronym that we use in law school. So all of those things that I was taught really helped set me up as a great communicator, because it helps me to hone in on those issues that are important, the arguments that can tank your argument, ways to counter those arguments and be persuasive in a way that moves the dial. So it's been very helpful, I think.
I would like to add to that too, that I think Deb's background helps us in a tremendous way. Deb knows this because it happens when we, back in the day when we were doing the in-person meetings. It feels so long ago now, but still on Zoom, we're experiencing this. We'll have clients that have great ideas, but they might not be necessarily the right decision. They might not be the most well received, from a legal perspective. So Deb is very careful to say, while I am not your legal advisor, I would suggest that might not be a great way to go. So you really get the best of both worlds through our team, because you've got Deb with the legal background and her primary expertise is advertising. And then you have me, who executed my first PR campaign at 13 years old. And that's a whole other story that we won't get into today, but we've got the true complement of PR and advertising. And
I will say too, there are a lot of days that in my old work where we had to run our messages by attorneys, a bank of attorneys. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, because I'm thinking about it from a legal perspective sometimes, as well as a communications perspective. And I don't ever want to do anything that would put my clients into danger. So that does help me. Now, again, I don't give legal advice as a marketing professional. I have ethical standards that say that I can't. So I don't give legal advice, but I do sometimes steer people away and say, listen, you might want to talk to your own attorney about that and have that conversation. So.
Well, and this person had a follow-up question then for Sharon. With such a depth of experience on an international level, how has this helped you in your work on a more local and state level?
That is a great question, and really it's everything. I started out in my career working for the biggest PR firm in the world. I followed that up with moving overseas, doing international public relations for several years. And gosh, I've seen it all. I've been exposed to so many, a wide variety of experiences that I have brought with me to Loud and Clear Marketing. And there are things that are happening in the remote countries in Asia or Europe that really are the same. The same rules apply, the same important messaging applies, but having that foundation to my career has really been everything. It still shapes today the decisions I make and the direction I counsel clients. So great question, Mr. Stewart.
Thanks you both for your presentation today. You gave everybody some great takeaways. I know I have some things that I'm thinking about leaving here today. For you, everyone that's attending, I'll be sending an email out after the presentation, either this evening or tomorrow, with a link of a recording of today's webinar if you want to review anything, as well as a handout based on today's presentation. If you were unable to attend the other webinars in the series. You can find those on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Also on our website, we've developed the business recovery webpage, which was developed to help you carefully plan for and execute your business's new strategies as you reopen or relaunch your business during these really challenging times. The guidelines cover a broad range of critical considerations. Well, you can use them by yourselves. They were designed ideally to be used in collaboration with the business consultant in your local SBDC center. And we have offices, like I said in the beginning, located throughout the state. Actually, there are SBDCs in every state in the nation. So if you're joining us from someplace other than in Virginia, please reach out to your local SBDC for help after, if you need to talk to anyone about any of the things that you learned here today, or if you go and visit our website, or really any general business questions. Again, thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.